Hi, I'm Doug, your tech support representative here at Atlantic British. And in this video we're going to touch base on another one of our maintenance kits that we have available. This one is in particular is for an 06 to 09 full-size Range Rover known as the L322. And this will apply to both the Supercharged 4.2 and the 4.4 naturally aspirated. And this is the transmission service kit that we have available, and this is all part of our Maintenance and Repair Academy that you can find on our website. Not only that, but you can also copy and download our sheet that gives you all the maintenance items that we recommend for that vehicle. Now, on the transmission kit, which is listed down here in the bottom left corner, is TRANS M300 SKA. It's recommended every 60,000 miles or every 10 years. Just like any other petroleum-based fluid, transmission fluid will break down over a period of time. So it's definitely a good idea to change them over on a regular basis. And what you'll get with the kit is the ZF Lifeguard transmission. This is fluid. This is the recommended fluid for this vehicle. You really don't want to use many substitutes. The ZFs are very particular about what type of fluid they use and how well they perform. You'll also get a new pan, and the reason for that is because the pan incorporates the filter. You'll see the filter built right into the base of the pan, your pickup tube, and it'll also give you the two new magnets that you'll find in the original when you drop it down. Now, these magnets are here to pick up any composite or any wear material that you're going to get from the transmission, just simply due to normal wear, and it's a good idea not to have it floating through the system. The magnets will pick that up and hold that until you're ready to do your changeover. Now, this pan comes in a large bag in the box, and you will find in the bag the new O-ring for the pickup tube. So I just want to make sure I make note on that, because you may pull this out initially. This is kind of small, you don't really see it right off the bat. So make sure you look in the bag, you get your O-ring. So that's essentially the kit you're going to get. Definitely a highly recommended maintenance item to do on your vehicle. Not that hard to do. Matter of fact, what we're going to do now is we have an 08 Supercharged Range Rover right here, and we're going to run through the process of how to change over the transmission fluid and filter in your vehicle. Alright, I want to mention a component that we've added to this kit so that it may save you some labor down the long run. This is a sleeve that runs through where this is the electrical connection for the 6-speed transmissions, and they're known to leak. So the time to replace this is while you have the pan down. Again, you'll see several O-rings on here, and then this just basically attaches into the transmission. It's a relatively easy thing to do once you have the pan down. So we're going to show you basically where the location and a description on how to change it over and save you some time in the long run. Before we begin, I'll give you a quick rundown on the tools that you're going to need to do transmission service on this vehicle. One is going to be initially, and I find this very handy, you want to keep a punch and a small hammer. Reason being is, depending on the year, in some of the earlier years, 06 and 07, they ran a bolt, a smaller headed bolt with a number 30 Torx drive on it, and they were relatively tight, and sometimes they don't break loose right away, and because the number 30 is so small, it's very easy to strip out. So I usually recommend before you even begin, you're going to take a flat punch and then just a little wrap on each bolt all the way around, and that seems to help a lot in breaking them loose. Then you're going to need, in this case, this has the number 40 Torx with a long extension. If you have the earlier model with the 30, of course you're going to use a number 30 short Torx. You're going to need at least a 3/8 drive ratchet. I like the longer ratchet, it gives me a little bit more leverage. Any ratchet will work just fine. For the fill plug on the side of the transmission, especially if it's a first change, that plug is going to come out pretty hard. So I wouldn't recommend using a ratchet. It could even damage some of the better ratchets, like I use like professional level tools. I would suggest get a 3/8 breaker bar. These will take a lot more torque than the gears in a ratchet. You got a lot less chance of it breaking loose. Should it break loose, obviously you can hurt yourself. So you want to make sure that you're using the right tool for the right job. For the fill plug itself, this is a number 8mm Allen head. I've shortened this one because if I find obviously the longer the tool, the less torque you can apply, and again, that first time on that fill plug, they're going to come out hard. They're going to be in there tight. And then a number 10 Allen, which is what you're going to use on the drain plug, which is located at the bottom of the pan. And then last but not least, what you'll need is to fill the fluid back up into the transmission is going to be a suction gun. Now you can buy these relatively inexpensive at any automotive center, and it just simply is exactly as it describes. You'll insert this into the fluid, draw it up into the tool, run the hose up into the fill plug, which is located up into the side of the transmission, and then fill it that way. So now that you know the essential tools that you're going to need to do the job, we'll show you how to do a transmission fluid changeover in your 6-speed ZF transmission. Alright, so we're going to start with taking the drain plug out of the back of the pan. Again, this is a 10mm Allen. Just be a little bit cautious, because initially you're going to have almost 3 quarts of fluid just dropping out of there, so there's going to be some backsplash. I have a tendency to want to just let it drop and back off before it all hits the pan. You'll feel when it's loosened up and unthreaded. And we'll let that drain out. While it's draining, we'll set the ratchet up for the bolts. Now, as I showed earlier, taking a straight punch and a hammer, I've tapped all the bolts all the way around. Now there's 21 bolts that hold this pan in, more than sufficient. But that definitely does help them back off. And what you'll do is just start from one corner, and we'll just do that 21 times. Alright, so we've got 20 of the 21 out. Now, you're going to notice already we backed it off a little bit, and this is hanging, so you want to make sure you support the pan when you take your last bolt out. Set that down so you should be able to spin the rest out with your fingers. Straight down. Alright, so you'll see here's your pickup tube. This segment, this plastic section right here, is actually the filter and is built in and is part of the pan, which is why we're doing a pan replacement as well. There's also 2 magnets that are set into the pan down at the end here, and this is to pick up any possible metallic object or any small shavings that can develop. Transmissions do wear internally more so than you really think, which is why you're changing the fluid over. You'll notice this is not just a nice clear amber fluid, but it is discolored. And this is where your contaminants are. This is clutch material, this is slight metal wear off of bearings and bushings as they wear in. So again, this is why this is so important to do. So we'll let this drain a little bit, and then we'll get into replacing the pan and setting all the bolts back in place. Alright, so essentially once you have the pan down, you get it cleaned up and you're getting ready to put the pan in, now's the time to change that sleeve over. And the sleeve really is relatively easy, but we're going to show you essentially the electrical connector, which is right here, is just a sort of a 90-degree nut that holds that whole thing on. So you'll have a tab right down here in about the 5 o'clock position. You're going to turn this, and you may need to put a long screwdriver on it just to initially break it loose because it's been up there for a while. But essentially you're just going to turn this collar about 90 degrees. That's going to release the wiring from the connector, and then you see a white tab in the inside the transmission towards the back, directly underneath that, and you're going to just simply pull down on that white tab to unlock the sleeve. You pull the sleeve out, put a little Vaseline on the O-rings, slide the new one in, push the tab back up, you're locked in. Electrical connector is going to go on same way it came off. Slide it over till it's locked in, turn that 90 degrees clockwise to lock it in, and you're done. The sleeve is in. Now you can put your pan on, complete your service. Alright, so now we have the new pan in play. We're going to set this up. First I'll show you, it does come with 2 new magnets on the base. Your filter is built in, your gasket's already in place. Don't forget to remove the white cap. Check in the bag that this pan came in the box, because inside you'll find the new O-ring, which will be inside of a small plastic bag, usually taped up inside. Absolutely do not forget to put this O-ring on. Set it in place. Take a little transmission fluid, wipe it on there just to slippery up the surface a little bit so it slides in better. Your opening for this, and this is your pickup tube, is right up next to the valve body. So when you set this in place, you grab 2 of the bolts, and you can pretty much figure the location. You don't even have to see up in there. It's just simply get the bolt holes reasonably lined up, and that pickup tube will set in. push in, and you actually heard it pop in place. And by lubing the O-ring before you set it up in there lessens the chance of that O-ring folding over or possibly tearing when you install it. These bolts actually run in and out fairly easy, so we're going to just run that up far enough to just barely hold the pan up against the transmission. Alright, so that's up in place. Now we're going to basically install our 19 other bolts and get them torqued up. Alright, so we've got the pan in place, we've got all 21 bolts in. For those of you that want to know the torque on these, they're only like about 8, in fact not about, but they are 8 Newton meters or 6 foot-pounds of torque, which isn't a whole heck of a lot, generally just snug. So, being that the majority of your click type torque wrenches are not even going to go down that low, you would need to have like a 1/4 inch drive torque wrench. Essentially we're just going to a hard snug. Not really tight, just 2 hands to bring them in just tight enough to fully seat and hold in place. Now the other thing I want to recommend is when you get the new pan in place and you get all the bolts tightened up, we're going to put a 10mm Allen in that drain plug. We want to make sure that that plug is fully seated. I have had instances where when they assembled them they didn't fully place the plug in and we ended up with a leak. We can't have leaks. So we're just going to go around and snug all the bolts in place, and then we're going to check the plug here, and then we're going to show you where to access the fill and go through the process of refilling the transmission. So the next step is going to be removing the fill plug. Then you'll see on the passenger side all the way to the back of the housing, there's your shifter cable. Right there is your plug, and we've used a short 8mm hex, and I prefer a breaker bar. As I said earlier in the video, the first time you go to loosen this up, this is going to be very tight. You're probably going to really need to put all your weight behind it to crack it loose. This one wasn't too bad, but actually we have had this one out before. So break it loose. Usually once you break loose, it spins right out of there. Now you're probably going to need, you're going to start off with about 3.5, maybe 4 quarts to fill the pan up to the point where it starts dripping out. Then what we need to do is drop the vehicle, start it up, put it back up in the air. We're going to let the fluid temperature get up to a full operating temperature, which should be somewhere between 85 to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. If you have an analyzer or one of our tools like our Tech Pro or our AutoLogic, you can actually monitor transmission fluid temperature, so this way you know you're in the proper range. Other than that, just let it sit and idle for about 10-15 minutes. I should get you up in that range, and then from there, once it's that point, we can top it off while it's running to get up to your maximum fill level. Alright, so now what we've done, we've got about 6.5-7 quarts that we've installed in there. The vehicle's running, we're up to full temperature. You can see I got a steady stream right now coming out of that. We're going to wait until it gets down to the point where we have maybe 2 or 3 drops a second. That would be the ideal. That'll tell you then that you're at the proper level. So that's probably going to take a couple more minutes, but at least then that gives you that idea. Once you've reached that point, put your plug back in, make sure it's fully seated, wipe off any excess that you got on the exhaust or on the frame. You don't need any dripping in the driveway, and then you're done. So when you're ready to do the transmission service on your L322 full size, this is 06 to 09, and the same procedure applies to whether you have the 4.2 supercharged or the 4.4 naturally aspirated. Call any of our knowledgeable salesmen at 1-800-533-2210. Thanks for watching.